Welcome back to Sheffield Live. I'm Baillor Jalloh, and we are talking about Egypt today, if you've just joined us. Earlier, we talked about the sudden death of Mohamed Morsi, Egypt's former president, who was elected in 2011, and he was in power for just a year before he was ousted by Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who is currently the country's president. Prior to his death, according to many people, he was a healthy guy. But then since he was arrested in 2013, or since he was detained in 2012, there has been not much of a visit by his family, and he's not been allowed proper medical attention, and he was suffering from diabetes. So on Monday, he was in court for charges of espionage, and he spoke a few minutes, but then he collapsed and died in court. That's a report given by the government. So far, we don't know much about what happened, apart from the information that we've been given by the government or that has been reported by international media outlets. So prior to us going to the break, our guest here, Alla, was just kind of pointing out on some of the main issues that Morsi faced and whilst he was in prison. But I'll come back to you guys again. The United Nations has called for an independent investigation into his death. So they are calling that to happen now. So do you trust your government or the Egyptian government to conduct an independent investigation, or you will want to see international players such as the United Nations come into the country and conduct this investigation?
If you come to Egyptian government to take a place to independently investigation, and if you rely on them very well, it's not going to be happen in honesty or trustfully. So we hoping it could be like a third party or partially party to take a place and fully investigate it internationally or independently investigated to his death, because it's something is not natural that. So we're hoping someone having an energy and pressure on the Egyptian government to find out the reality of the Mohamed Morsi death. So, and just give the truth to the Egyptian people to see what's happening so far, why this man is been in facing the hearing, and about the charges has been put in his back, and he just suddenly is collapsed, which is not making sense to all Egyptian or even all Muslim world so far.
Enoch, Egypt is part of the African Union, and they are one of the major players in the continent as well. Since the Arab Spring began, or since so many of what we've seen happening in Africa and that kind of, in terms of similar stories, why has the African Union, in your opinion, has been so quiet on Egypt? Because we've seen recently when Omar al-Bashir, when there was a protest in Sudan, the African Union was so quick to come out and make a statement to say, look, you know, you have to protect the protesters, you don't have to kill people, you don't have to do this. And after Omar al-Bashir was ousted by the military, the African Union also made a statement saying, look, you know, we are giving you time, you need to hand over power to a civilian rule. You know, so they're always making statements. But why, in terms of Egypt, the African Union has been so quiet about what has been unfolding in the country?
I think if you look at the magnitude of Egypt, you know, how the whole thing's evolved, I think, to me, I think it was a big task for the African Union to actually handle or even manage, because the Arab Spring didn't only happen in Egypt, but it spilled over around, you know, some of the North African countries, and this, I think, was unexpected. You know, it was something which was unexpected by the African Union, and they didn't have, I a way to understand.
But this is an organization that is more than 50 years old. Why would
It is
this
an
be-
organization, but let us not forget, post-independence, pre-independence, African Union, we've seen its ups and downs over the years. Whether it's losing the grip or whether it's just not bothered about some other issues, or they can't manage, that's something you could basically question. But in Egypt, in the case of Egypt,
Are you saying everything took them in a surprise?
for the Arab Spring, yes, it was a bit of a surprise in a way because.
There could go pressure from Western countries to specifically.
But if you look at the reaction, the African Union didn't react as much as they should have.
No.
All the reaction came from the outside.
They react when the Western go pressure.
Okay, let's forget about the African Union here. What about the Arab countries as well? Because they've got what they call the Arab League. And in terms of the Arab League as well, they are divided in Egypt. When you look at Saudi Arabia, who is a major player in the Arab Peninsula, they are in support of the Sisi government.
Yeah.
Whereas countries like Qatar, I know Turkey is can be called part of the Arab League. They are in support of Mohamed Morsi. But having said that, in terms of the real problem of Egypt, nobody has said anything.
If you come term for Middle East or Arab world, and now who's control the games in Middle East is United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. Them two countries trying to destroy most of Middle East countries, which is any countries started with the spring, Arab Spring, and all the revolutions happen over there. They are just worrying and trying anyone comes in power or anyone comes in any country's got with the revolutions in a place, they're trying to make it as the shaitan is in power there. So they're trying to make it worst image ever, and to try to destroy what's happened in Syria last 10 years so far, or 9 years. Millions of people has been homelessness, over 1 million people has been killed, as all over the world it become like asylum seekers. It's all over Syrian countries now is be supported Assad as a killer for his own people. It's been supported from United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. They want anyone to be freedom in the country. If you come to Saudi Arabia in a term of Egypt-wise, they pay billions of dollars just to keep Egypt away from Arab Spring. They don't want any freedom to Egypt. They think they are occupied Egypt so far, especially with the term of condition of United Arab Emirates. So it's quite complicated. Now, if you're looking now in Sudan so far.
Is that to say Saudi Arabia is mingling or interfering in other countries' affairs? Is that because they want to control the region, or that is because they have fear in their own country that if things change in Egypt and other countries, there might be changes in Saudi Arabia as well?
If you go democracy in Egypt and Libya and Tunisia and all these countries are going to be raised up in a freedom, and economically it's going to be in more comfortable conditions. This country doesn't like it because you got all kingdom power in themselves, and there's between family. Like if you go to Saudi Arabia, all the income or the economic in Saudi Arabia is just in a family who's in power at the moment there. Al Saud, what do you call it? And United Arab Emirates is just in the family of Sheikh Zayed, which is...
Well, I want us to focus on Egypt. Let's forget about the family
No, I mean, I'm not concerned about this. They don't want any freedom, because if anything happened to this, the public for each country would come out, be thinking to remove this from the power, and this is what is concerned, the most concern of these people, to get Arabic Spring spread out to Gulf area. And this is what is all. They pay every penny out, wherever they can, to save themselves in power.
Enoch, the way things have been unfolding, just as I mentioned to Alal there, the Arab Spring as well, or the Arab world, has been very quiet on this. And likewise, as we mentioned earlier, regarding to the African Union, will you say the Arab world is kind of quiet because they are more like the African Union, they are toothless, and or everyone is just having to focus on their own problems? Because if you look at right now, Tunisia, they had their own problem, as we mentioned. Libya had their own problem. Now, likewise, Egypt, Sudan, and Saudi Arabia has been focusing on Yemen, you know, and you cannot fight so many battles at the same time.
I think it's like pick and choose. You know, you have to pick your own areas where you can manage things. And to be honest, you know, the Arab League, they've picked where they think we can have some influence here. We can benefit from what we do in this country. I mean, how many years? Probably over 3 or 4 years now, the Yemen conflict has been going on. You know, the whole international community, they're looked away. They haven't got involved themselves. But in the Egyptian case, how it started, where it is now, there's not much that's been done. So to me, I just see damage, you know, from both sides. You know, the Arab League are doing what they think is right, but it's also in their own best interest. At the same time, the African Union is looking away, or they're not able to intervene in one way or the other. So
it's just to close one eye and open the others.
So the other thing is, we need to really understand in Egyptians' context, you know, who's who and who is able to do something about the Egyptian crisis right now. I mean, Morsi's gone, right? Sisi's been on. Are we going to see something else being born out of the Brotherhood again? You know, seek some change that people are still, looking for. You know, all these are like areas of questions really for people to ponder on, especially the Egyptians.
It's quite a complicated situation in Egypt now so far, really complicated. And especially after Morsi's death, the views there is going unviewing, like unclear at all. We don't know because the majority of Muslim Brotherhood, they are in the prisons. Hundreds of thousands of people in the prison. So
some of them are in exile.
Sorry?
And some of them are in exile.
Yeah, and most of them is out of the country, and they cannot even physically get back to the country. And all of them, like, they're banned to go back to the country. They take the citizenship of them so far. Now, it's going to become darkness in Egypt.
Talking of darkness, though, sorry to interrupt you there. Morsi was buried on Tuesday without a state funeral. And according to reports, his family wanted for him to be buried in his hometown where he was born. Yeah. But the authorities refused. He was buried in the eastern town of Cairo, or in the east part of Cairo.
Yeah.
So are you surprised the way the kind of funeral he's been given, or will you understand the government's idea that if Morsi is to be given a state funeral, or if he was to be sent back to his hometown for burial, there might be some sort of protesters, or there might be unrest in the country, and they're trying to protect that from happening?
If anything happen like this, it's going to be out of the control, because they will be moving the feeling of obsession of Egyptian people, because they think this is like what's happened to Morsi is going to get people up from silence. It will make the public start thinking this our president, original president. This is what happened to him is unjust to him or to the majority of Egyptian people. What's the people has been quiet. Just try to calm things down, try to want anything to happen in a place. If his country is on town, it's going to be a major problem. to the government-wise. So they're trying to control it, not giving a chance to anyone to come out into the street to protest. Because if people come in to protest, they cannot vote them back again out of the street. So,
Enoch, your thoughts on that?
I think, to me, it was a bit of disrespectful. You know, he has where he comes from, you know, and obviously, you know, the African tradition or even family.
As a Muslim culture as well.
Yeah, they would have had, you know, his family would have wanted him to be buried, you know, from where he was born, you know, the village where he was born. And probably the people from the village, you know, that's their son. But for him to be confined in this place where he could be monitored, or the people that would have been there on his funeral to be monitored, because I see that as intrusive. You know, this is a private session, and for someone to die, it's a family burial. So, and obviously, Baillor just mentioned him not being afforded, you know, a stepmanship kind of like funeral, you know. So it's just been given like a little small funeral.
It's
not public.
Very limited to his family only.
Of course.
And he's been washed and prayed on him just in the prison. He didn't come out for Torah, what they call Liman Torah, which is where he's been placed in his prison. It's just a very small amount of a number of people has been praying on him and washed there, and I think it's very small amount of his family. His so close family. I think it's his wife and his daughter.
His son.
I think, and his son only.
Well, we've got less than 5 minutes to go, but let's talk about the future here. So where do you see Egypt now in terms of the future, the way things are going on in the country?
To be honest, as I said earlier, it's going to be a darkness ever. As long as the military is staying in power and not giving a chance to anyone else to try to move Egypt forward.
But in terms of the military here, Al-Sisi being in power, he's been in control of everything since he took power in 2013 or 14 when he ousted Mohamed Morsi. And he's a very powerful man in the country. Prior to the overthrow of Mohamed Morsi, he was the chief military officer in the country. And since he took over as well, his ability to rule, he has strengthened that in every department. He controls everything. But likewise, the time of Hosni Mubarak, he did the same thing. But when the people of Egypt were ready to oust him out, they did. So are you hopeful again there might be another revolution born out of this?
It is hope. We are under hope. We have to pray to Allah and make things different and make things easier for Egyptian people. But this is my view so far now. It's a bit hard at the moment because it's very control of Egyptian public, and there's no one can just come and say he can say his own say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, do we think, you know, because Mohamed Morsi is gone, you know, do we think, you know, the voice of the Muslim Brotherhood, you know, will still be in existence, you know, to live on in Egypt? Because so far, you know, the only person we knew is gone, and he was the strongest pillar, you know, for the Brotherhood across the Middle East. So
we're relying on him to be out or anything.
Yeah, but
to come out,
there's big supporters like Turkey. You know, Turkey's out in big support. But do we know whether the people in exile or the people within the country might be able to, you know, get a new leader to, you know?
But looking at that though, as we mentioned earlier, the United Nations has called for an independent investigation. Likewise, countries like Egypt are calling for an independent investigation. And here some British MPs like Crispin Butlin, or I'm not too sure what his name is. Crispin Blunt. You know, they are calling for independent investigation. So there might be an independent inquiry. And let's say if that independent inquiry happens, if the government or the government of Egypt is, as they are accused right now, of foul playing, let's say if evidence comes out of any foul play here, do you think the West might take a different step and that might be maybe the end of Al-Sisi?
Not really. I think it's all done and dusted now. So these investigations they will amount to nothing. So the investigations would have been in Morsi's situation, when he was still alive. So he's gone. He was a threat. So the threat is out. What are they going to be investigating? I mean, who are they going to pinpoint to? We know, everything was in the media. He was denied medication, adequate health care in prison.
Yeah, but there are hundreds of other people who are in prison, and that might re-influence the situation.
But we're talking about a leader here, and that's Mohamed Morsi. So this independent...
But the Brotherhood has been in existence far away before Mohamed Morsi came.
80 years ago.
Absolutely, absolutely. But so far...
And it's very organized.
There's not been any other names to come out to see, okay, Mohamed Morsi is gone, who else is coming in?
You've got the deputy leader that is in talk, isn't it?
This is the people in Muslim Brotherhoods who's in exist at the moment. They haven't got much power to say, we are there, we can fight, we can exist in the country. As long as you are out of the country, you cannot physically represent Egyptian people or represent Muslim Brotherhood anyway.
Okay, just a final one on this to both of you before this show ends. The Muslim Brotherhood, as we mentioned, the West has been quiet, or the international world. Just short answers. Do you think the international world has been quiet on Mohamed Morsi just because he was part of the Muslim Brotherhood, and the Muslim Brotherhood is regarded maybe to some as terrorist organization or as a threat to the West?
They're trying to consider Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. Even come to Britain, they're trying to put the name, and this luckily Britain has refused to name them as a terrorist organization. It's been well known as over 80 years. They've been in power, they've been between the public, all over the world. Has been most peacefully organization. There's no fear of them, no scare of them. They have been supporting everywhere in public sectors anyway.
Enoch, just a quick one.
Yeah, I think, like what we all summed up, I just think it's been existing for years, as Alla just mentioned, but in the actual understanding of what we're talking about here today is just to question ourselves, really, are the international communities strong enough, to see some of these malpractices around,
we're hoping so.
The world are sorted out in a way. So.
We're hoping people have to be woke up one day.
Well, unfortunately, time is against us, but this was African Voices, and as you mentioned, time will tell as things are unfolding in Egypt. We've seen so many things happen over the past couple of years in the Arab world. So the only thing we can say is we wish all Egyptians well, and we hope and pray that it will change for the better for the whole of Africa. Until next week, that was African Voices, and thank you for watching.